historian.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Steve, the amateur historian, here to finish what we started. In this case, finishing going through my old vinyl collection. I cut this into two because I figured this is going to be like a 2-hour long video, which, I mean, I guess is fine. I'm almost cut it in two more for my own personal reasons. One, it gives me 2 videos instead of 1. But more distinctly, editing software would take forever to export a 2-hour long movie. It's not that I have a slow system, it's just sometimes when videos get that long, there's issues. So we left off, we had just done A through H in terms of going through stuff. Now again, as I mentioned in the last video, I keep my vinyls in alphabetical order based on the name of the band and or performer, and obviously if it's a performer, I go based on the first letter of their last name. So if it's Bruce Springsteen, he's in the S. And then once, for each individual performer, if I have multiple albums from them, those are then in chronological order. So we left off, we had just finished the H's. I have no albums that start with I, so we're going into J, and we're starting off with a bang with my most favorite performer, band, whatever you want to call it, of all time. And it's a solo artist, but you know, solo artists have bands. They're a performing band. My most favorite of all time, and I don't think it's ever going to change, and if you don't like this guy, well, that's on you. But you have no musical taste, you filthy heathen. Sorry, dial it back. The man, the legend himself, Billy Joel. That is the tops for me. Now this actually, and I did a video on this a while back, this is Billy Joel's first, and I have almost all of his stuff. I think I have all but like his last 2 albums, which came out in 89 and 93, and you know, again, the more out of the 80s into the 90s you get, either the more harder it is to find vinyls, or the more expensive they get, in part because they're harder to find. Now this, his first album, produced in 1971, I believe, was actually processed wrong and at a faster speed than it should have been, so his voice was a little high. It was later fixed best they could and re-released sounding more like his regular voice. This copy, because I didn't think about this when I bought this copy is actually an original 1971 release that was mastered improperly. So at some point I want to get the version that's properly done, but I'm actually really happy and elated that I have a copy of this original one. I know when Billy Joel heard it himself, granted he's trying to get his solo career off the ground and his first album's all messed up, he apparently took the specific vinyl that the album was playing on, which this is in shockingly good shape for its age, and he just chucked it out in the street. He was so pissed, and I can understand. Next, and I think I haven't even played this yet, I got an old copy of Piano Man. Look into his eyes. Now, yeah, so I haven't, and it's pretty beat up, the case. The vinyl, I'm pretty sure, is in, but yeah, it's got this weathered paper. Like, this is OG right here. But the album itself is in pretty decent shape. There's a couple marks, but what do you expect? But yeah, I haven't listened to this one yet. I've listened to pretty much all of my vinyls, and I've listened to all of my Billy Joel vinyls, even the improperly mastered Cold Spring Harbor, but I haven't put this one on yet. What the hell? Oh no, a little piece of paper fell out. What are you gonna do? And that brings us to his third album, underrated in my opinion, Street Life Serenade. I just love the album cover. It's simple, but the small town vibes are awesome. Then that brings us to another underappreciated album in my opinion, Turnstiles, with this Columbia Records demonstration not for sale sticker on it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, this is in immaculate condition. And of course, what Billy Joel collection is complete without The Stranger. I actually bought a copy of this in 2015 when me and my girlfriend were going on a trip to the beach. We stopped along the Oregon coast and went to an antique place, and they just had so many vinyls. I probably would have bought some if I was actually like collecting vinyls at the time. and there was a copy of this album for $5, and I bought it just so I could say, like, I have a Billy Joel vinyl, because he's my favorite. And I don't know what happened to that. It disappeared when I moved. I don't know. So, it's fine, because I got another copy of it. That brings us to 1978's 52nd Street. And the process goes on. As I said, I have all of his albums up through 1986. We got Glass Houses here. The very cardboard slick paper cover. Not shiny sheen like these other ones, but still in solid condition. Yeah, most of these vinyls I've gotten, again, used and cheap, are in, 80% of them are almost pristine condition. Then we've got The Nylon Curtain, 1980. This is the one I always, okay, it's 82. I always want to say this is 81. Don't know why. And here, this is actually an album that I have 2 copies of, because my girlfriend, I think, found one for me, or I think they maybe got it for me as a Christmas gift. And I bought a lot of 6 Billy Joel albums, because 5 of them I didn't have, and I got them real cheap, and this was in there. So even though I already had this album, it was still a great price just for the other 5. So I have 2 of these. I think the other one's mixed in with my girl's stuff. And then the last Billy Joel album I have, The Bridge, 1986. So someday I'm gonna get Stormfront, and I mean, I want to get I want to get River of Dreams just so I have all of Billy Joel's albums, but truth be told, I don't really love the River of Dreams album that much. I like half the stuff, the other half I can live without. Progressing forth, this was one of my, especially when I was first getting into music as a teenager and into my early 20s, this is one of my top 5 favorite bands, and yet I don't have any vinyls from their most popular, well-known era. I only have this compilation of their earlier stuff before they really hit it big, and that's Journey. This is, it's kind of nice. They did 3 albums before Steve Perry joined the band. The band was pretty much told, get a new lead singer, get something else going, or we're canceling you guys, because Journey had great musicians, but they didn't really have that was really all they had, and they played these really long rock songs that were actually really good, but they weren't selling. And so this is a compilation of all their pretty much pre-Steve Perry stuff. So it's 2 discs. It's like, I don't know, about 15, 16 songs. And what really annoys me is it's all flawless and pristine, but the last song on the last disc is I'm Gonna Leave You, which is, I think, like 7 minutes long. And with about 5 seconds left in the song, the record skips. So the last little part kind of just plays on forever. But yeah, I have no Steve Perry era Journey. I really want to get Frontiers, at least. Maybe Escape. But Frontiers, I want to get Raised on Radio, too. As I mentioned in the last one, I was talking about the Cars and how 2011 they came out with an album, Move Like This, and it was like they hadn't lost a step. It was such a perfect representation of the Cars, even though they hadn't done an album in almost a quarter of a century. That album was done a couple of years after the death of Benjamin Orr, who with Rick Ocasek was one of their lead singers. Well, Benjamin Orr released I think this is the only solo album he ever released, which is unfortunate because this album is amazing. Benjamin Orr, The Lace, I believe this came out in 86. Like, look at it. It's just so dripping with 80s. This is another album. Like, I listened to it once. Someone had uploaded the songs onto YouTube, and I listened to it, and there was like, 2 of the 10 songs I liked. So I'm like, I don't live with, I can deal without. Then I started hearing it again. It was like all of a sudden I liked all of these songs. Really freaking good and underappreciated. It's one of those things where these guys were known as the Cars, and when some of them tried to go off and do solo stuff, some of it got kind of lost in the shuffle and underappreciated. Here's another band I absolutely love, and I want to get more of their vinyls because this is the only one I have of them. I bought this after the passing of their lead singer, Tony Lewis, and that is The Outfield Bangin'. This was their second album, I believe, released in 87. I want to get Play Deep. I want to get, I always forget if it's I think it's Visions of Babylon. I want to at least get those 3 on vinyl. They're a little expensive. But I bought this right after their lead singer, Tony Lewis, unfortunately passed away. And I really don't know where the band was at before then, because their lead guitarist, who actually, as I understand it, wrote a lot of their music too, or at least their lyrics, he passed away in 2014. So I don't really know if the band was even kind of performing with the replacement, but now it was only a 3-part band, and their lead singer and primary musician are both passed. So the outfield is essentially no more, as far as I can gather. Oh, another one I just got tonight, as I'm recording this, because I'm recording it again in 2 parts. Psychedelic Furs, Midnight to Midnight, as I showed you earlier. Yeah, it took me a while to warm up to these guys, but as I got more into the 80s new wave, they were a pretty easy band to like. Oh, here we go. This is another piece I just recently bought when I was antiquing with my girlfriend. It was $7. This is kind of the equivalency to the Journey album I got, because this is an REO Speedwagon a compilation, two vinyls I found for $7, and it's pretty much. I mean, REO Speedwagon was pretty well known by 1980, but they didn't really blow up till High Infidelity, which came out in 1980, and this is all their, or like, it's a compilation of music of theirs that all leading up to High Infidelity. So it's kind of similar to that Journey compilation, except REO Speedwagon was much more known than Journey was before Steve Perry took over. So I mean, I don't absolutely love REO Speedwagon's 70s output, but I like some of their stuff, and definitely the music that I do know from this compilation is stuff I like for the most part. So it was well worth the $7 to get 2 vinyls. And while we're on the subject of REO Speedwagon, their 1979 album, 9 Lives, which I'm pretty sure my girlfriend told me that like this is like her favorite album cover of all the albums I have. So you can get a taste for her taste. Yeah, I feel like this is kind of an underappreciated album. It's pretty. It kind of gets a little, the side 2 kind of fades a little bit in my opinion, but it ends with Back on the Road Again, which I love that song. And it's kind of REO Speedwagon's one of those bands that a lot of their music has a comedic element to it. And then they do songs like Back on the Road Again or I Can't Fight This Feeling, and it's like they're actually these like serious songs. And then that comes to us, I bought this at the antique shop, same time I bought that REO Speedwagon compilation. I've been wanting to get High Infidelity forever, and I found it there for $8. It's about as cheap as you're going to find it on Amazon, or not Amazon, but eBay. Probably much more expensive on Amazon. So, another mission accomplished. And that brings me to, as I mentioned earlier, Billy Joel is my second favorite. Billy Joel is my favorite of anybody all time, which means he's also, as far as solo performers, my favorite. But my second favorite solo performer of all time is, and this is another one that I just got like this last week in the mail, The Boss. I really learned to, I liked a lot of his well-known stuff. The first time I ever heard him was his Greatest Hits album. So I learned to love, Dancing in the Dark, Born in the USA, all that stuff really quickly. But then I had to, start listening to more of his overall catalog and really learn to develop an overall appreciation for his music, not just his hit stuff. And it took me a while to warm up to most of his 70s stuff, but I'm there now. So I'm really glad that I got this album. In particular, Racing in the Street, Badlands, Prove It All Night, Darkness on the Edge of Town, the title track. Just awesome. I mean, look at this guy. This guy beat your ass. And to follow that up, we've got The River, which I'm really surprised at how easily you can find this album in terms of price. You can find this album for very cheap because it's you can see how thick this is. It's a two disc album, because there's like 20 songs on here or something like that, and just really kind of set the stage for his next album, because there's a great element of like melancholy that kind of overshadows this whole album. He ends it with a song like Wreck on the Highway, which is so effing sad. And then you follow that with like the pinnacle of Melancholy, which is Nebraska. And I remember people would always talk about, oh yeah, Nebraska. Oh, you think Born in the USA is a good album? You think The River's good? You need to hear Nebraska, man. And I was like, yeah, whatever. The only song I know was Atlantic City, and I don't like that song that much. That opinion has changed greatly. I actually really love Atlantic City now. And then I heard it, and I was just like, okay, I get it. Nebraska, Atlantic City, Mansion on the Hill. Highway Patrolman is, like, I feel like probably his most underrated song, because no one ever talks about it, and it's amazing, in my opinion. But yeah, Used Car, it's just, it's gold. And then, someday I'm gonna get Born in the USA. It's a pretty easy album to get, so it's not really at the top of my list, because I know just eventually I'll be able to get it. But that brings me to the last Bruce Springsteen album I own, which is my favorite one. I actually, I think there's part of a reason to this, but really it's just no other Bruce Springsteen album, no other album in general that anybody's ever done gives me a feeling that this one does, and that is Tunnel of Love. It's my favorite Bruce Springsteen album. He's just hanging out with his car. But there's so many underappreciated songs on here. Tunnel of Love is great, but, Brilliant Disguise, Tougher Than the Rest, those are probably the most recognizable songs, along with, like, One Step Up is so amazing. Valentine's Day is amazing. Walk Like a Man is awesome. Like, it's just so good. But for me personally, I got this really stupid idiot crush on a girl in high school. Admittedly, I was a bit of an incel in high school. Not to a level 10, but like a level 5. And I would, if I decided I had a crush on a girl, I would get fixated on her. And I got really fixated on this one girl senior year. And, it took her 3 times to say, like, hey, I'm not interested. Take a hint, buddy. And then after that last time, when I finally realized this isn't going anywhere, and I cried for like an hour over a girl I barely effing knew. 18-year-old Steve. And literally, I graduated. This was like right at the, this was the moment I was graduating. I think my high school graduation was like 2 or 3 days later. And I was just kind of lost. And here I am, I just finished high school. I have to start life. And I'm just like, I was so just in a strange place. And I went to Goodwill with my parents. And at this time I wasn't even really getting CDs yet, even though it was like 2004, but I still was like mostly listening to audio cassettes, and that quickly changed. But I found a copy of Frontiers, the Journey album, on audio cassette, and I found this, and I bought both of them because you could get an audio cassette for like $1 there. And, for the next couple of days after I graduated, I just kind of sat on the couch and tried to distract myself with writing projects and stuff. And I listened to this album over and over, literally on repeat. Play side A, flip the tape, play side B, flip the tape, play side A again. And I literally, for like 2 or 3 days, I listened to this album probably 20, 30 times. And it brought me a sense of calm. And it legitimately, like they say music does, it gets you through certain times. And this album really got me through that weird, confusing stage in my life. That was in many ways my fault for being a stupid, dumbass incel, but you live and you learn sometimes. So, thank you, boss. You got me through some hard times. That brings us, we're shifting back to 80s new wave. And this is a band that, based out of Canada. Canadians that listen to 80s music probably know this band very well, but they never really made it big in America, so they're kind of considered obscure, because if you don't make it big in America, you're automatically obscure. And that is this band. I think they only did 3 albums. They may have done more, but they did 3 that I know of, and I have 2 of them. And that is the band Strange Advance. And this album is from the early 80s, like 1982. Strange Advance, Worlds Away is the name of the album. I really love the vibes of this. It's like dystopian, but you've also got like a girl with the beach ball. The title track, Worlds Away, is probably my favorite Strange Advance song, which is kind of a sellout. That's like saying Bohemian Rhapsody is your favorite Queen song, because that's like probably their most well-known song. I know it's the song by far that gets the most listens on Spotify. And next up, I really don't know which Strange Advance album. I maybe give a nod to this. Strange Advance, 2 with a 2 for the T, so it's doubled up. And I think I maybe like this one a little bit more than their first album. Just real solid, very emotional new wave music. You get a feel from it. It's not just all just electric, 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 blah, 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 electric, electric, blah, blah, blah. And that brings me to another band that I just recently got another album for, and I want to get a couple more of theirs, but I've got all of their later 80s stuff when they changed lead singers. That is Survivor, Vital Signs. So I have all their Jim Jamison era stuff, but I want to get a couple of their earlier albums. And this is another album, not the album itself, but a particular track, track 1, I Can't Hold Back, was a song that our senior year track team, one of our coaches would make like a slideshow of video and stuff from the track team at the end of the year. Did it every year. And when my, not to get off on a wild tangent, but when my class of 2004 joined the track team as freshmen, our team had lost. They had 7 meets the year before and lost all of them. That's where my high school was at. By my sophomore year, we won 4 out of 6 meets and won the district meet. And then as an upperclassman, junior and senior, we went undefeated in our league, won like 14 out of 14 meets, primarily led by my class. So that's something I really hold on to as far as what nostalgia do you have from high school. It's those track and field days where, you know, we were dominant. And our coach, even though it's a love song, it fits so well. And this last video that he did for when our senior class was leaving, it was like an homage to us. It was like, thank you, seniors of 04, because they knew we were so integral to not just winning that year, but from getting us from being a winless team to being an unbeatable team. And they played I Can't Hold Back at the start. And I have to watch that video at least once a year, or I go nuts. And I still feel the same way that I did then. But that was how I really got, you know, beyond knowing that they did Eye of the Tiger, that really got me into Survivor. And I remember me and my friend that summer after we graduated, we became obsessed with Survivor, primarily because we both started watching the Rocky movies, but also because that song was on our track video. And then a couple years later, I love this album cover. They did When Seconds Count, which as an album I actually like a little bit more than Vital Signs. And the next one I have I actually thought was probably my favorite from this era, but I actually think this one I give a slight edge overall, because this next one, there's like 2 songs that I don't really care for, and this one there's not really a song I don't like, but I just love it's so it's just so dipped in 80s, all of the blues and pinkish purples and whatnot. I love it. And then there was the last album they really did before. It was kind of like they would do some songs and like it just didn't, they could never really just get an album done. Like I think they released an album in the mid 90s. I think it was called Reach, but it was really just a mix of songs they'd kind of done off and on. It wasn't a just consistent album. So this is really kind of their last, like, sit down, put the piece together over a little short term and make an album. And that was Too Hot to Sleep, which unfortunately I don't think it was promoted well, and it just didn't sell well. I want to say it barely broke the top 200 in album sales, which is crazy for Survivor. And that kind of just buried them a little bit. And it's really unfortunate because it's not like they just gave up and made a crap album. Like, oh, we put out a couple good ones and we just don't care anymore. So they put together some redundant sludge and just threw it out. Like, this is a really good album, especially for, like, you know, 80s. Like, objectively, it's a good album if you like 80s music. And it just didn't have its chance. So it's kind of this almost forgotten gem. And that brings us to Toto, which this was so cool. I actually bought a different album entirely, and the guy just gave me a second vinyl, and that was this. He just gave it to me with the other one. This was just for free. So I was like, oh, hell yeah, you are getting a good review. And this is their first album, most known for having Where is it? Hold the Line is from this album. Some other good songs, I'll Supply the Love, Angela. It's a pretty good start. And here's another one I just recently got, because you can't not, if you're going to collect Toto stuff, you can't not have Toto 4, which somebody's dog apparently like attacked the corner. But you know what? The vinyl's in flawless condition. And it's got the old sticker, and I love it when it comes to you with still the old plastic on it, and it's got the like promotional sticker. But this is the album that has Rosanna and Africa on it. So, you know, this is the one that people remember the most. That being said, my personal favorite in terms of Toto albums is their 7th album. The 7th one. That's literally what it's called. This is the only Toto... Well, no, I mean, I guess I technically like all the songs on Toto 4, but I really like pretty much all the songs on this album. They kind of give you a little bit of everything. You've got your love songs, you've got your kind of hard rock songs, you've got your social statement songs. But yeah, it's from beginning to end. There's not a track that I don't like on here. There's not one that's even close to me. There's not even a track on here that I'm like, I'm okay with this one. I really genuinely enjoy every single track on this album. And by this time, Joseph Williams, this guy right here, he was their lead singer. I think he might have, or he was their primary singer, because multiple people in the band sang for them. But he's the son of John Williams, the iconic soundtrack creator. Just in case you didn't know. And then, okay, so this is another band that I have all of their albums, as far as I know, because I think they only did 3 albums. And, you know, it's another band that I kind of listen to their music, and I'm like, okay, there's like 5 or 6 songs I like. And then I find, again, you know, you listen to something, you kind of don't like it, you listen to it again, you still kind of don't like it. Then you listen to it a 3rd or 4th time, and all of a sudden, like, you like everything on it. I don't know if that's how it is for other people, but honestly, most albums I end up loving, that's how I get there. And that is a band, or at least that happened in this case, and that is with a band from the 80s that I really, really learned to love, called The Truth. And this was their first album, Playground. These just some boys hanging out, you know. And yeah, it's just, you know, again, it's not, you know, they're pretty much a new wave band. You know, they didn't reinvent the wheel, but they consistently made stuff that I could enjoy. And enjoy enough to where I actually felt motivated to buy all, because originally this was the only album of theirs I was going to buy. Their second one, Weapons of Love. This was the only one I was really intending on buying. And then I ended up buying all 3. And this album, their last album as far as I know, I thought this album was garbage. The only song I liked on it was the second track, Throwing It All Away. And I remember like listening to this album and the other songs just crap. And then I listened to it again, I'm like, this stuff's still crap. And then I listened to it a 3rd time, and suddenly I like most of the stuff on this album. I don't know how it happens. It's just what happens. But yeah, Throwing It All Away is really good. Song called Shadow on the Sun. Tug of War is decent. Prisoner of Love, Wings of a Prayer. Listening to the Rain Again is... Throwing It All Away and Listening to the Rain Again are probably my favorite songs on here. So, there you go for The Truth. Oh, and this one's particularly special to me. This is one of those ones... This was the first LP I bought off of eBay. So it wasn't the first LP I ever had, but by this time I only had like 4 or 5. And this was an album that was really obscure as far as I could gather. And I thought, wouldn't it be, I'm just gonna try, see if I can find it. Wouldn't it be so awesome if I could find this on vinyl? Because it's an 80s album. And, you know, just because something maybe wasn't super successful then and is maybe forgotten now, or at least very obscure, doesn't mean that you know, they wouldn't have made vinyls of it to try to sell it and promote the album. And this is another one. I think it took till the 4th listen before I suddenly realized how much I liked everything on this album. And that is one of the best album covers of the 80s as far as I'm concerned, and that is the 1986 album Another Victim by the Ultraviolet. Look at that makeup game. Do you see it? Just a simple but awesome album cover. And what was so great, and I'm not sure which, because they have a picture of the members on the back. I'm pretty sure this guy's the lead singer, and that's just because I saw a music video of a song they did later. So it wasn't him, but it was, I think it was a guitar player. And I'm going to try, I hope I don't botch your name, but it's Bob Pucci or Pucci. I'm leaning towards almost Pucci. I don't know for certain. I'm just the guy doing the video. But anyway, he's listed here as I did a video on my channel, you know, it was about obscure vinyl. And that guy actually found the video and commented and was like, hey, I was in that band. And I was just like, you know, for a guy that's only got, you know, a little under 4,000 subs, and a lot of his videos barely break a couple hundred views, when you have somebody who's like in an 80s new wave band that responds to your video, that's pretty awesome. So I really love that. So he's this guy, or this guy? I'm not certain which one. But that was awesome. As far as tracks, again, I really like most of the stuff, pretty much everything on this album. One Time Too Many is awesome. The song Carrie here is honestly probably one of my top 10 favorite songs of the 80s as a whole. Because it has everything that a new wave song should have in it. Like, check everything off the list. Really great guitar solo, good use of like harmonies, really kind of the vocal, the way he sings the vocals, or there's this broken emotion. The flow of the chorus is so perfectly 80s. It fades in, and there's everything just solid. Wow, and with that said, we are down to the last 3 LPs that I've got for now. I mean, even as we speak, I've still got like 3 coming in the mail. Here's another band that's kind of along the similar lines of the Ultraviolet. One of these bands, they only did 2 albums and then just kind of disappeared as far as what it seems. And one of their albums I'm kind of about. There's a few songs in there that I like. And this was another album that was kind of like that. But then I listened to it all the way through and I realized there's like 6 or 7 songs I really like on here. And that is this band Virginia Woolf. And I think this is their first album, because I think they did an album called Push after this, and this came out in this is 86, and I think Push came out in I think it was called Push, came out in 87. But yeah, there's tracks. There's Are We Playing With Fire, I really love. Make It Tonight is probably my favorite song of theirs altogether. But yeah, Waiting for Your Love, Living on a Knife's Edge, Goodbye Don't Mean Forever. Those are probably my favorite ones on here, but there really isn't a track I don't like on here. Oh, this actually brings us, okay, you remember I was talking about Bruce Springsteen, and this girl that I asked out to, I don't remember if I mentioned I asked her out to prom, but anyway, then just got stupidly, weirdly obsessed with. So, and again, you know, I'm pretty much listening to whatever random audio cassettes I was able to scam out of like wherever my dad was leaving tapes, and I found this album and I was kind of listening to it, and I don't know, you know, I guess I really didn't need a whole lot of substance to try to connect a song with my feelings, and so there was just songs on here that I was like connecting to, and I started listening to this right around the time I started becoming hooked on this one girl, so I kind of associate this album with that time period, and that is Mosaic by Wang Chung. In particular, there's okay, here's the information for side 2. Where's the information for the information for side 1's on the front of the album. Wait, which side is the front? Anyway, yeah. So like Hypnotize Me. You know, it's you know, like a love song, like You've Got Me Hypnotized. Like, I would listen to that and be like, oh, that channels my feelings for this girl because I'm hypnotized by her beauty, or freaking whatever. You know, when Let's Go is on, eyes of the girl with the eyes. You're a girl I like, you have eyes. It's like, just, you know, you could use anything when you want your emotions to be a certain way and just channel them. And then this is literally that brief space between when she finally was just like, I'm not freaking interested, and me getting Tunnel of Love at the Goodwill. We're talking a span of like 48 hours. And after, you know, she finally gave me the heave-ho, and I just remember I was, you know, just crushed for like the next day. And I kept listening to the song "A Fool and His Money" that they did over and over again, which of course is this song. Like, there's one of the primary lines in the song is all my love is gone, or all the love is gone. You know, just a way to be a dramatic 18-year-old and get overly emotional about the attention that you were giving to a girl that you got hooked on, who you do jack squat about, really, personally. So that Mosaic ties into that same period. I wasn't even thinking about that until I saw it, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's harken back to when I first heard this album and all the stupid self-created drama that was just billowing out at me during that time. And that brings us to our last vinyl in the mix. Another band that there's like, I think 2 more albums I really want to get, but for now I only have one, and this is by far my favorite album of theirs. I think it's the 3rd album they did from 1987. It is Wire Train, 10 Women. Wire Train, another band that like was known but didn't really hit it super big. And they did, you know, pretty straightforward 80s music, but they did this kind of straightforward 80s music that I'm into. You know, and this album's pretty solid from beginning to end in terms of just listening to it. Listenability, which I know isn't a word, but it still fits. Yeah, songs like She Comes On, Take Me Back, She's a Very Pretty Thing, which is kind of a song title that sounds almost more offensive than complimentary in this day and age, but it's a good song. Mercy Mercy, Certainly No One, Too Long. I mean, I like all the songs on this album, so I bought it. And that, my friends, for now, I actually need to count through all these. I don't know exactly how many LPs I own. I know I was around 60 when I first tried doing this video, but again, that was like 3 months ago or something like that, maybe even longer. And I've bought more since then. So I don't know, maybe I'm around 80. I may honestly have more. I may be closer to 100 LPs at this point. I really don't know for certain. But for now, you know, mid-autumn, the leaves coming down, the rain has returned. I can't freaking get out to vlog ever because the 2 days a week I have off from work, it's always randomly raining on those days. But you do what you can. And this is a vinyl collection that obviously I will be continuing to add to as I want to and as I can. So, you know, I may do like an addendum video to this at some point, like here's the vinyls I've bought since that, so it kind of adds to it at some point. But I'll have to buy at least, you know, 15, 20 more to really justify doing any kind of video like that. But it'll probably come at some point in the future. So this is what you got to work with for now. So I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. You got to see my vinyl collection. You got to hear a few of my stories about my personal life connecting to the set of vinyls that I own in certain circumstances. And, you know, that's the thing about music. It doesn't just, you know, give us something nice to dance to. It doesn't just, you know, move us, but it gives us something to really connect to. It gives us something to identify with, and it gives us something to sometimes console us in our times of need and reflection and a necessity for transitioning into a new phase of your life to either keep moving forward or leave behind the folly of your past. And those are just a few reasons why music's a good thing. There's millions. So all that said, I'd like to thank you, as always, so much for stopping by, hanging out with little old me. As always, you know, if you're new to the channel, you just haven't done it yet, remember to like, share, subscribe. You can hit up my Patreon if you want to. The link is in the description with this video. Among other links to other methods of finding things related to what I do primarily here on my channel, which is history stuff. Hopefully my name makes that fairly clear. And all that said, one more time, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for hanging out with me for a little while. And till next time, this has been Steve, the Amateur Historian.